Welcome to another episode of Mike's Money Picks. Today on the podcast, we're bringing you episode 2 of our 3 that we're going to have here for PGA Championship Week 2024. Today is the DFS preview, where we are going to look at the DraftKings and FanDuel boards and break down what we think the field is going to do in terms of ownership, in terms of roster construction, and then what we think you should be doing in terms of ownership and roster construction. The guys that I think are going to be the best plays, the worst plays, the guys that need to be in your lineups, the guys that you need to be fading, how you need to be constructing your lineups, what you need to be looking for. We're going to cover all that here on this episode. Purely DFS here tonight. Now, yesterday, a lot of the information that we're going to talk about today comes from yesterday's show. Yesterday, we previewed the course as well as looked at a lot of key stats and made a custom model for this course here at Valhalla. So if you did not catch that, make sure you go back in the audio feed or on the YouTube channel and find that video, so you can have all that information. And there's going to be some guys that came up in that video yesterday that we may or may not get to today. We're not going to be able to talk about all 150 or so of the guys that are in the field here this week here in this episode, but we're going to be able to get all of our hot takes that we have for the week. We're going to be able to get out here this week. Tomorrow night is going to be episode 3 of PGA Championship Week, where we're going to break down pretty much everything outside of DFS. We're going to talk best bets. We're going to talk one and done. We're going to talk office pools, any sort of like the miscellaneous games for the PGA Championship. We're going to be talking about that, and we've really got some good ones that I'm eyeing for that. If you're doing player props on underdog, then that would be another thing that we're going to talk about here tomorrow night. But today is strictly DFS. And I got to say, I'm looking forward to DFS. We've got a millionaire maker where, as much as I love the millionaire maker just for the shot of winning $1 million, I do think it's a poorly constructed contest this time with 33% of the prize pool going to first. I don't know what they would not have gained by increasing the entrance that they got, because obviously this thing's going to fill, and making it a little bit more of a balanced payout. But hey, what do I know? Anyway, with the millionaire maker comes a lot of decisions, especially with how they DraftKings did the salaries this week. We're back to having the $13K up top with Scotty Scheffler, and we're back to having the $5K minimum salary. This is the second major in the last 3 that's had this salary structure, with the Open Championship having a $5,000 minimum. The Masters did not, but the Masters was also a limited field. So this is a salary format that a lot of the field does not have a lot of data on, knowing how to build lineups for, knowing where the field is going to go in terms of ownership and in terms of roster construction. So I think that this is a week where the casual to intermediate DFS player, I wouldn't say has an advantage, but they're not as much at a disadvantage, because all the pros aren't going to know all the ins and outs of where the likely optimal lineup is coming from when the salaries are constructed in this manner. So definitely looking forward to this week here for DFS. Now, if you have not already, help me out. Hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, rate and review if you're listening to audio, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well as on Spotify, so that way you can be with us for the rest of PGA Championship Week, but also for the rest of the PGA Tour season, as well as all of our upcoming fantasy football, best ball, college football, college basketball content coming your way here for the rest of 2024. Lastly, I don't ask for this very often, but this is a major championship week. This is a week where a lot of eyes are going to be on golf, and a lot of eyes are going to be on golf content. So if you really enjoy what we've done here at Mike's Money Picks, please help me out. Give me a shout out on Twitter. Let a friend know. Spread the word. We're getting close to 500 subscribers, and I really would like to hit that milestone. And so you guys spreading the word really does help me out a ton. If you want to show some support, that is one way that you can definitely do that, is by putting it out on social media or letting a friend know, and helping us build this community here at Mike's Money Picks. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into the DraftKings board. All right, so looking at the DraftKings board, I really do think that this week there is a clear big 5 at the top of the salary board. I think there are 5 guys that it's going to be very common that everybody is going to start their lineups with. So one thing I do think is going to be important is, if you're starting with one of these 5, you're going to have to find a way to be different somewhere. So this is a week where, with the salaries being as wide as they are, with this tournament being one where we only have really one actionable piece of course history, and that was from a decade ago. This is a week to consider everything. So consider leaving money on the table. Consider wave stacking, where you play all guys that tee off in the morning on Thursday, or all guys that tee off in the afternoon on Thursday, especially as we get closer to lock, where we kind of have a little bit of a grasp on what the weather is going to do, and it looks like one wave may be better than the other. I think that's definitely something to consider this week. I also think skill stacking is something to consider this week. Maybe it might be worthwhile to build yourself a team of just bombers, or just a team of guys who play well in major championships, or just a team of guys who, kind of have good putters, or guys who are accurate. Like, there's just all kinds of ways that you can build a little bit of correlation this week and see if, that correlation can help you go all the way to the top. Now, from the top of that board, here's who I think the big five are: Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, and Brooks Koepka. I highly expect most of the field on DraftKings to start their lineup with one of those five. So, in all honesty, I think it's highly likely that the winner comes from one of those five. So, picking which one of those five you're going to start your lineups with is going to be super important. I don't think that there's a whole lot of value in trying to get two of that five. Yes, the salaries do go down to $5,000 this week, but if you try it, it's really not fun to build a lineup for. You're really having to sacrifice the rest of your lineup and sacrifice the mid tier. And really, there's not a whole lot of guys under 5,500 that I'm really interested to play this week. So it gets really desolate when you get down there. And I think that most of the field will be playing one of these five guys. So these five guys, like we said, Scheffler, McIlroy, Rahm, Schauffele, Koepka. Let's break them all down. Scheffler is obviously the best player in the world. He's won four of his last five starts. In the one that he did not win was a T2. It's utterly insane the run that he is on. However, if there were a week to fade Scotty Scheffler, this would be it. And I think there's a myriad of reasons for that. One, he just had his baby. And speaking from recent experience, I, had my daughter was born last September. I was coaching football right up until she was born. And then I took, 2.5 weeks off of teaching and coaching. So that way I can be at home with my wife. The week or so after she was born was just a whirlwind of not sleeping at night, not knowing what time of day it was, not being very productive, trying to figure out this whole dad thing, right? And it was just chaotic. And I know that if I had to play championship golf in that, I would not have been in any condition to do so. But I'm also not Scotty Scheffler, and I don't have access to the resources that Scotty Scheffler does. So maybe, that might not have a whole lot of effect on him, but I don't know how much he's been golfing or how much he has been thinking about this event if, he really is all in on the baby thing. Now, also, I think that Valhalla is a little bit less of a thinking man's golf course than Augusta National is, or Harbor Town is, or TPC Sawgrass is. I think that this is going to be a course where guys are going to bomb it off the tee. The greens are not as intricate as a place like Augusta National, so there's not as much thought in the short game. It's just going to be chip it up as close to the hole as you can get it. And I don't think that that's going to play to Scotty's strength. One of Scotty's strength is his course management, putting the ball in the right spots, leaving the ball in the right spots, avoiding big numbers, and just doing the smart and prudent thing on the golf course. And I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a way that he's going to gain a whole lot of strokes this week, just because this is not a thinking man's golf course. I also think that the salary with Scotty, if you try building out a few lineups, it's just not as comfortable to start your lineup with Scotty as it is to start it with Rory or Koepka. It is just a simple fact of the matter. And also, I think the simple mathematical regression of it, like, I don't think it's sustainable for the guy to continue to win 4 out of 5 starts all the time. Like, no one in the history of golf has ever done that. So I do think that at some point he is due to come down a little bit. And there's a myriad of reasons why this week could be the week. I am not going to full fade Scotty Scheffler, but I definitely anticipate myself being around or under the field average in terms of ownership in terms of on Scheffler this week. I definitely don't think I am locking him into my lineups. I don't think I'm going to be overexposed to Scheffler, but I'm certainly not full fading him just because he is a dangerous, dangerous man. Now, Rory to me makes a ton of sense this week. And I think he will be the highest owned player on DraftKings because of everything we just said about Scheffler and what Rory has done. You look at what Rory has done recently. He's coming off of 2 wins. Yes, one of them was the team event, but let's be honest, he put Shane Lowry on his back at the Zurich. But at the Wells Fargo, you saw the ceiling of what Rory McIlroy can be. Rory McIlroy's ceiling is, in all honesty, probably better than Scotty Scheffler's ceiling. If I'm being totally honest, Rory McIlroy's ceiling is -8 through 8 holes at Quail Hollow. Like, he can just absolutely get scorching nuclear hot. And so what if he does it again this week? Like, he already has a win at this course. And you look at how he did it. He did it in a very sustainable way where he didn't gain too many strokes putting. He was positive in all areas of his game. Like, I think that everything points to Rory this week, which probably means he's going to fall flat on his face. But Rory numerically, game theory wise, everything just checks a lot of boxes in terms of what Rory's going to do this week. Now, John Rahm. is going to get all the leverage bros to come out. And here's what I mean by that. All the leverage bros, all the guys that, are DFS content creators that think they have an edge on the game theory and all that, they're going to come in and say, oh, John Rahm's going to be 10% projected ownership. You got to play him. And that may be the case in terms of these 10% projected ownership, but does that mean you should play him? He has given us very little in terms of form this season to make us think that he is the player that he once was before he went for live. And his track record at major championships is a little hit or miss. He does have a great track record at Jack Nicklaus designed golf courses. He has a great track record on bent grass. He has a great track record in this area of the country. So I do think that when you think about all of that, everything that goes into it, I think that Jon Rahm provides great leverage. He's a guy that I am certainly going to be playing in some lineups, but I'm not going full leverage, bro, and saying like, oh, he's 10%. You got to play Jon Rahm. Like, no, ask everybody who played him at the Masters how that worked out for you. Which quick side note, I don't like people who victory lap DFS ownership before the tournament ever tips off. Like celebrating that you built a lineup with less than 60% ownership. It means nothing to me until the tournament's finished, right? Because in PGA DFS, there's a reason that guys are highly owned. It's because they make sense as good plays. They're good course fits. They have good course history. They have good recent form and so on, right? Guys that are lower owned typically don't check one or more of those boxes. So you're kind of sacrificing a little bit of the optimalness of your lineup to try to get lower ownership. And it just makes sense that some of the guys that are higher ownership are going to end up smashing, like Scotty Scheffler did at the Masters, right? So to me, I don't like victory lapping ownership on Thursday morning. It's something that rubs me the wrong way. But also, it's something that in PGA DFS, you have to understand that there's going to be good chalk, there's going to be bad chalk, and building a lineup with probably one or two chalky guys is probably going to end up being the optimal strategy by the end of the week. Out of all these five guys, Xander Schauffele is probably the one that I am going to be the least exposed on just because I just don't think he's a winner. Like he has a great track record at major championships, but he hasn't won one. He has 8 straight top 20 finishes in majors. He's got a very well-rounded game. He's very well adaptable to any course. If you're playing cash game DFS, I think that's a great way to get access to Xander. If you want to bet him in a top 10 or top 20 market, more on that on tomorrow's show. I think that's a great way to play him. But in terms of a DFS lineup where you got to start off your lineup with somebody, he's not a guy that I'm going to be doing that with. Brooks Koepka is. Rory and Koepka are probably going to be my two guys at the top of the board this week. Brooks Koepka has been incredible at my comp courses. He won at Oak Hill. He won at Bellerive. He's been great on bent grass in his career. He's also been great on Zoysia fairways in his career with a win at the FedEx St. Jude and a win at Live Singapore last week on Zoysia grass fairways. I just think that Brooks Koepka is very likely to win this event, and I'm going to be playing him all over the place in DraftKings. Like I don't care if I get burned on it. I just think that when it comes time to play the majors, you play Brooks Koepka. It's just what you do, right? Like I'm not going to miss out on Brooks Koepka for that reason. All right. With that being said, we've kind of cleared the top of the board. Let's go ahead and take a quick breather, and then we're going to continue on further down. All right. So continuing on with the DraftKings board, I think that you're going to see this next group be significantly lower owned than the group of 5 we just talked about. Like from Oberg all the way on down to Bryson, I think you're going to see very low ownership just because it's kind of hard to fit those guys as a second man in if you're trying to go balanced. And I don't think you're going to see people fit them in as a first man in. And I think that there's a red flag for all of them that is going to keep people away, right? So first up is Ludwig Oberg, who seems like an incredible course fit. He's an elite driver of the golf ball, very long, very straight off the tee. Very little in terms of major championship history, but he did finish runner-up at the Masters. I think he's a great play, but I think the knee injury that caused him to withdraw from the Wells Fargo is enough to scare a lot of people away. Word from the practice round is that he's been grabbing his knee as he's playing from what people on Twitter are saying, which, by the way, people on Twitter are saying that this course is going to play easy. I don't know if that's going to end up being the case or not, but if it does, it makes me certainly lean more into Rory McIlroy as my top of the board guy because he certainly excels at major championships. When they end up being soft conditions, when they end up being easier conditions, that's when Rory really shines. But anyway, I think that injury is enough to scare people away from Oberg, and I definitely think it's enough to scare me away a little bit. I will probably be around field average on him, but certainly not locking him in, certainly not full fading him either because I do think the kid is supremely talented. Colin Morikawa. and Patrick Cantlay and Victor Hovland, I'm going to lump into the same boat. So the argument for these three guys is that they generally play Jack Nicklaus design golf courses very well. They are generally pretty good on bent grass. They're generally pretty good in this area of the country. Colin Morikawa has a deceptively good majors track record as well. You look at his entire major history, he has never lost strokes on approach in a major, and that includes even events where he missed the cut. That's insanely impressive, honestly. And also, when it comes to Morikawa, great history at Muirfield Village. He has a win there, which was a Jack Nicklaus design. It was one of my comp courses. But you look at what he's done recently, and Colin Morikawa, noted bad putter in his history, has really flipped the putt around. He's gained over 3 strokes putting in his last 3 measured starts. It's the approach that has really been hit or miss, but like I said, he's gained strokes on approach in every single major championship that he has started, and that's pretty darn impressive. The one concern is that if you do think this is going to be a bomber's course, that certainly does not play into him, but there's certainly some boxes that Morikawa checks, and certainly some boxes that Morikawa doesn't check. Patrick Cantlay is another guy with great form at Nicklaus courses, great in this area of the country, has won some BMW championships, has won at Muirfield Village, was great at Oak Hill last year. I just don't really trust what he's been doing lately statistically, and the finishes kind of bear that out as well. The only tournaments that he's played well at this year are Riviera and Harbour Town, and he always plays well at Riviera and Harbour Town, so I can't really give him any bonuses for that. Victor Hovland looked kind of lost before last week, and last week I actually played him a decent bit at the Wells Fargo, and he actually showed a little bit of signs of life. He had a pretty solid week on approach, gaining almost 5 strokes for the tournament. Gave it all back, or not gave it all, but gave a lot of it back on and around the greens. But he's generally been pretty good around the greens in thick rough, which is what he's going to see a little bit of this week. So Victor Hovland, another guy like Morikawa, like Cantlay, that is going to check some boxes, but certainly not check others. Cam Smith is a full fade for me. I think this course is going to require elite driving in the golf ball, and he ain't it. And if he makes 7,000 birdie putts and ends up dooming me that way, so be it. But he is a full fade for me. I don't trust his driver. I don't trust him at this type of golf course, and I will not be playing him at this type of golf course. And anytime you can full fade someone near the top of the board, it definitely makes getting to the right builds, especially if you're playing multiple lineups, certainly easier. Max Homa, for whatever reason, tends to pop at long courses. Like, you just look at his track record this year. T13 at Farmers, long course. T16 at Riviera. T18 at Bay Hill. T3 at the Masters. T8 at Wells Fargo. Whatever reason, he plays really well at long golf courses, and this is one of the longest, so I definitely think that he has to be in consideration. One other thing. The last time the PGA Championship was at Valhalla in 2014, most of the top of the leaderboard gained strokes putting. Now, what a lot of people would use that to do is to say, oh, that means you have to be a good putter to play well here. Not exactly. It was not guys who necessarily were good putters or were putting well heading into the week. They happened to putt well that week. It's like that meme you see of the plane where it's got the bullets in the certain spots, right? Because you're kind of using the best guys to prove a point when, of course, the best guys were the ones that gained strokes putting. So this week, I don't necessarily want to target good putters, but I want to target guys who have the potential that if they do putt well, are going to be able to contend and win a golf tournament. Max Homa is generally a pretty good putter of the golf ball, and when he does putt well, he does give himself a chance to win the golf tournament, so he certainly checks off that box. I think Bryson DeChambeau might win this golf tournament. I really do. I think he's got a perfect skill set for it. He's been great at this area of the country, winning at Muirfield Village, winning in Chicago on LIV. I know there's others that I'm missing. He's been great in the state of New York in his career. Like, just this area of the country on bent grass, he's been great. And I definitely think that he can get back to that. You look at the Masters, he showed his ceiling and his floor, right? His ceiling is dominating the field in round 1 when it was soft conditions and, everybody was kind of playing a little bit easier. And then it got windier, it got tougher, and Augusta kind of bid him back. But at the end of the day, Bryson's ceiling is up there with anybody in that top group, and he's going to be my second man in on a lot of lineups this week. Wyndham Clark and Joaquin Niemann are going to be full fades for me. More on Niemann a little bit later. But as for Wyndham Clark, I just think he does his best at golf courses with wide fairways and short rough, and does not check either of those boxes. So I'm not going to be playing Wyndham Clark this week. Just don't think he's a great course fit, and I'm going to move on from there. Justin Thomas is a guy that is the hometown hero. He has won 2 PGA championships, and his recent profile is looking a little bit better. That is not who I wanted to click on. Justin Thomas is a guy that his tee to green game is generally pretty doggone good. And when he does putt well, look out, because that's when he normally ends up winning. But if you look at what he's done recently, he's been really solid in 2 straight starts in all categories from the tee to the green and on the green. So I do think that JT's game is in a pretty good spot. I hope that people are off of him, because this is a week that I do intend to be on him. Now, as for the next little group, from the 9K down to the 8K, I got 4 guys that are in a similar boat that I love this week. And that is Will Zalatoris, Cameron Young, Shane Lowry, and Tony Finau. Love all 4 of them. All 4 of them long off the tee, great total drivers of the golf ball, great long iron players, great major championship track records, terrible putters. And, I don't think that all 4 of them are going to putt well this week, but I think it's highly likely that one of them does. And if one of them does, these are 4 guys that the rest of their game is so good, the rest of their game aligns for this course so well, that if they do happen to putt well, they give you the upside to win this golf tournament. For instance, Will Zalatoris, you look at one of his one PGA Tour win was a TPC Southwind that was on Zoysia grass fairways, which is what he's going to see this week. His best putting performances have come at major championships, which is where we're at this week. Cameron Young, also deceptively good major history. He's played 8 majors and finished in the top 10 in 5 of them in his career. That is incredible. Shane Lowry has been a really good tee to green player in the calendar year 2024. He just hasn't really been able to piece it together on the greens and has been just absolutely bleeding strokes putting. But what if he doesn't? In his last, 6 measured starts, he has gained 4 strokes on approach in 5 of the 6. That's pretty darn incredible. And if he ever flips the putter, he is going to be able to win this golf tournament. Tony Finau has won 2 tournaments on bent grass at the 3M Open and at Detroit Golf Club. And guess what? We're on bent grass here this week. Like Shane Lowry, he's been great tee to green in 2024, just hasn't been able to piece it together for a win with the putter cooperating while the rest of his tee to green game does. Jordan Spieth, I have similar worries about to Cameron Smith. He's a guy that I'm going to be playing a very little bit of this week because he is going for the career Grand Slam. He is very motivated and his ceiling is that high, but I just don't think it's a great course fit. Tommy Fleetwood, great major championship track record, great total driver of the golf ball, have no problems playing him this week. Hideki Matsuyama, I think he's more of a U.S. Open guy than a PGA Championship guy. There, I said it. His WD last week really concerns me. Hideki, after those random WDs, really does not seem to do all that well. Full fade this week for me for Hideki. Sam Burns, also full fade. Sam Burns, do it in a major. Great game. Love his golf game. Like him as a guy. Do it in a major, and then I'll be able to put you on my roster in major championships. Tyrrell Hatton's a guy that I like also this week. He is a long and accurate driver of the golf ball, and he's got a deceptively good major championship track record. I don't think anyone would, think that about Tyrrell Hatton, but he's kind of been like Xander Schauffele light version at majors. 9th at the Masters this year, 27th at the U.S. Open last year. The PGA last year, T15, the PGA 2022, T13. He's just run together a lot of good major championship finishes. And I'm kind of willing to roll the dice with him because of that. His ball striking's been really good on LIV. He's only $8,200. I think you could argue that he's a little bit underpriced. Tyrrell Hatton is going to be a guy that I'm going to be rolling the dice on this week. And Sahith Theegala kind of checks a lot of the same boxes that Max Homa does. So I'm going to be on him a little bit here this week as well. Dustin Johnson and Patrick Reed are going to be full fades for me this week. That does it for everybody priced 8,000 and up. So let's take a quick little breather and then let's take a look at the value plays. Before we talk about the value plays, I do want to mention there are a few places where you can get more information from me. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at Mike's Money Picks. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you got on there, and I'm kind of just generally giving some comments, and I usually do the PGA DFS rundown every week as well, where you can kind of get just a little bit more information out of me as well. I'm also in the Fantasy Corner Discord. Link is in the description on YouTube as well as on the audio feed. Fantasy Corner Discord is a lot of smart people who play DFS for a lot of different sports. If you play MLB, NBA, golf DFS, and then when it gets back in season, NFL, college football, college basketball, Fantasy Corner Discord is the place to go. Got a ton of people to bounce ideas off of and then sweat it out together. It's an absolute blast to be a part of, and I could not recommend it enough if you're looking for more people to talk DFS with. And then also, On my Patreon every week, I write a full article for every golf term where I profile my core DFS plays, the top 10 from my model, as well as what went into that model and the thinking behind the core plays as well. So you can get a full article there for or on the Patreon for $3 a month, as well as our upcoming best ball NFL content, a season-long NFL fantasy football content, and then when it gets back, college football and college basketball content as well. So if you want to get access to that, which includes live and alternate PGA events as well, head on over to the Patreon, patreon.com/MikesMoneyPicks. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the guys under 8K here on DraftKings. And I got to say, Jason Day and Sung Jae In were full fades for me last week, and it contributed to me having a very poor week at the Wells Fargo. And you know what? I'm probably going to do it again. Full fade. The first guy that really does have my attention in the 7K range, though, is Minwoo Lee. He is one of the longest drivers of the golf ball in the world. He generally plays well at long golf courses. He has the capability of getting hot with the putter, and his last 3 major appearances have all been T22 or better. He checks a lot of boxes for me. I think this guy's very talented. I think it's only a matter of time before he wins a major. And so why not this week here at Valhalla, what's supposedly going to be a bomber's paradise? Siwoo Kim is another guy that has my eye this week. His recent form has just been like incredible. He's been, T30 or better ever since the Arnold Palmer Invitational. That was back in March, like the beginning of March, which is just an impressive run for Siwoo. And he's been doing it in all categories. The ball striking has been immaculate. He's generally pretty good around the green player as well. When the putter cooperates, he has the upside to finish in the top 10 of this event. And I really do like the chances of Siwoo Kim doing that here this week. I'm also, when we get to these value plays, I'm going to group a few guys together who kind of have similar profiles and similar skill sets. Alex Noren is kind of like the light version of what Siwoo is doing right now, gaining strokes in all categories, very solid short game, very solid recent form. Those would be 2 guys that I'd certainly be looking at if you're prioritizing recent form. Now, we got to talk about Taylor Gooch, because this is a guy, let me tell you, I cannot fade this guy more this week than I possibly am. Like, this is a guy that pretty much every time in an interview this year, he's made himself look like an absolute donkey. Just talking about how, I should be qualified. It's got an asterisk if I'm not in it. And yet he refuses to go qualify. He refuses to acknowledge that he put himself in that situation. And the PGA of America handed him a special exemption this week. For what reason? I don't know, because he hasn't been as good on LIV this year as he was last year. Last year was when he was racking up all the wins on LIV, not this year. And I just don't think that he's going to show up and do it in a major, because in his career, he hasn't done it in a major. In fact, Taylor Gooch and Joaquin Niemann combined have 1 finish inside the top 15 of a major. And so for that region, Taylor Gooch, Joaquin Niemann, do it in a major. Full fade this week. I'm not going to be playing any of Taylor Gooch. I'm not going to be playing any of Joaquin Niemann. Now, granted, watch because I say full fade, watch him go win the tournament. But I just think that this week there's going to be a ton of pressure on Taylor Gooch to back up everything that he said this season. And his major track record, it doesn't give me any kind of indication that he's going to be able to do that. His track record at long golf courses doesn't give me any indication that he's going to be able to do that. So I think it's a very easy full fade for me this week. I will let other people pay the rake by playing Taylor Gooch at 7,600. Now, Sepp Straka, 7,500, is a guy that I really, really like this week. 4 of his last 5 tournaments, he has been T16 or better, but you got to look at how he's been doing it. This is a guy who can get absolutely scorching hot with his irons. He has gained about 5 strokes on approach in 4 of his last 5 measured starts. That is, that's really impressive. Like, he absolutely has the ceiling. And oh, by the way, he has the ceiling to absolutely get scorching hot with the putter, like he did at the John Deere Classic last year on bent grass, in kind of a similar region of the country where he ended up winning that tournament. And his major track record is pretty good. He was T2 at the Open last year, T16 at the Masters this year, and T7 at the PGA last year. So Sepp Straka is just checking a ton of boxes for me this week. He is already one of my favorite plays of the week here this week at $7,500. The guy who is like Sepp Straka light version is Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore only does not have the major track record that Sepp Straka is coming with, but he's $1,300 cheaper. The recent form is similar, but not as good. But this is a guy that also has the ceiling to spike on approach and spike with the putter. And if he does it, he's certainly going to pay off that price tag of $6,200 in Taylor Moore's case, $7,500 in Sepp Straka's case. Now, Russell Henley is a guy that I like a little bit as well. He's got a great track record in majors, kind of like Colin Morikawa, of gaining strokes with his irons in pretty much every major that he starts. And his recent finishes have been really, really good. T10 at Wells Fargo, T12 at Heritage, 4th at Valero, 4th at Bay Hill earlier this year. But my worry with him is that this is such a bomber's course. It's almost like he's starting with 0 balls and 1 strike because of his limited distance off the tee. And I really think that's going to put him at a disadvantage this week. But that didn't seem to put him at a disadvantage at Valero, which is a long course, or at Arnold Palmer, Bay Hill, which is a long course. So maybe he can buck the trend. I do think he's going to be pretty lowly owned. I do think he is playing well. He's a guy that I'm interested in, but there is that one red flag that he's got. Akshay Bhatia is a guy that I would very much put in the Will Zalatoris, Tony Finau camp of this guy has a skill set that absolutely fits this golf course perfectly. If he's able to gain strokes with the putter, he might win this event. And oh, by the way, he won the 2018 Junior PGA Championship here at this golf course. So he has a history of hoisting a trophy at Valhalla. That's got to give him good vibes. He's got to know the layout of this place because of playing here that week. And I just really like Akshay this week. He's also one of my favorite plays here at Valhalla. Dean Burmeister is another one of my favorite plays. This is a guy who is going to hit it a mile off the tee. He's been playing great on LIV this year. In fact, the longest event that LIV played this year at Miami, at Doral, he won. So he's got a track record on the DP World Tour and on LIV of playing well at long golf courses, and of which this is a very long golf course at Valhalla this week. So I really do like Dean Burmeister. I think he's a sneaky value play at $7,000 even. I also really like Justin Rose this week. And it has nothing to do with his recent form because it's quite horrible. But his major championship track record is just really good. Like would it surprise anybody if Justin Rose was like lurking with like a T12 at the end of the PGA Championship? It wouldn't surprise anybody, right? Now he's missed his last 2 majors, but prior to that, T9 at last year's PGA, T16 at the Masters in 2023, T13 at the PGA in 2022, T8 at the PGA in 2021. 9th at the PGA in 2020. For whatever it is, the PGA of America setups just really speak to Justin Rose. He plays well at pretty much every PGA championship. And at $6,900, yes, his recent form is terrible, but I'm willing to buy into that major championship track record. Cam Davis and Keith Mitchell. Yes, I'm skipping over the next group of guys. The group of guys includes Tiger Woods. I'm not playing Tiger this week. If I'm not somebody to tell you what to do with your money, but if you're willing to spend money on Tiger Woods and DFS just because you want to root for Tiger, go for it. But there's nothing numerically that supports him playing well this week. There you have it. Like, if you want to root for Tiger, go for it. I'm going to be rooting for Tiger. It will not be with my DFS lineups that I'm going to be rooting for him, though. Matthew Pavon was really disappointing last week, but I do think he generally fits the course pretty well. The 2 guys that I wanted to talk about, though, were Cameron Davis and Keith Mitchell. Those 2 are really long off the tee. Cam Davis really popped at the PGA Championship with a top 10 last year. Keith Mitchell has been one of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour this season, and it's only a matter of time before he finally turns that into some really good finishes. He just kind of hasn't yet. He hasn't done any better than 9th, but his ball striking has been incredible. For whatever reason, also, he tends to play well at the same courses Rory McIlroy plays well at. And I don't know if you know this or not, but Rory McIlroy did win the last time the PGA Championship was here. So Keith Mitchell checking a few boxes in that regard. Kurt Kitayama, another guy like Cam Davis, tends to play long golf courses well, tends to play golf courses with thick rough well. Top 10 at the PGA last year. I'm probably going to be sprinkling in a little bit of Cam Davis and Kurt Kitayama as some of the last guys in some of my lineups. Denny McCarthy is a guy that I talk about on the podcast a lot because he is one of the best putters in the world, verifiably. And anytime you have a guy who has a marketable skill like that will translate to any golf course, you got to consider him, because what if he just sinks every putt? It'd be like the final round at Valero, which he almost stole from Akshay Bhatia, right? Like, he was just sinking every putt. And so he's a guy that I'm going to consider. He's a guy that I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit. I don't think he's going to be a core play or anything, but like, anytime you got a guy who's got a skill like that, they got to be on your radar, in my opinion. Billy Horschel is another guy that I like. He has a great history at Jack Nicklaus golf courses. He also has a win this season at Corrales, unfortunately. I don't think there is a strokes gain breakdown anywhere of that win at Corrales, but he's been pretty solid this year. Was terrible at the Wells Fargo, but has been a solid iron player, has been solid around the green and with the putter. And I just think that it would not surprise me at all to see Billy Horschel end up coming in the top 20, top 10 of this event. He has a win at a Jack Nicklaus course at Muirfield Village. He also played well at the two Florida Jack Nicklaus courses, PGA National and the Concession. So Billy Horschel is a guy who is certainly going to be on my radar this week. Taylor Pendrith is another one who is. Because let's be honest, is there anybody at $6,000 or below on DraftKings coming in with better recent form? I don't think so. T11 at Corrales, win at the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, T10 at the Wells Fargo. And what's most important to me is he's doing that at all long golf courses that are going to require a lot of long irons, which is what you're going to see this week. But also he's doing it in a fairly sustainable way where he's gaining a lot of his strokes off the tee with his driver, which is generally his strength. And his around the green play and his putting have been really good. He has a decent track record of bent grass putting. He played very well with the Rocket Mortgage a few years back, which are bent grass greens like these. And he's been pretty good around the green as well. So I do think that Taylor Pendrith is certainly going to be a guy that makes some of my lineups at $6,000. I only worry that he might be like the chalky last guy in at $6,000. I think he's probably going to be the most popular of anybody in this like $6,200 to $5,800 range, which, by the way, is not very good. There is a guy at $5,700 that caught my eye, though. It's Austin Eckroat. He has a win at a Jack Nicklaus designed PGA National. He has played long golf courses very well this season. He has been a really good approach player this year as well. Checks too many boxes to only be $5,700. He's certainly going to make some of my lineups. Victor Perez has a sneaky good major track record. Like, it's never anything super flashy. In fact, it's about the same caliber of what I just yelled at Taylor Gooch and Joaquin Niemann about. But at $5,700, I will absolutely take a 20th place out of him for a guy who has played decently in the major season. Chris Gotterup is an absolute flusher of the golf ball who just won the Myrtle Beach Classic. I think he's very talented. I think there's a chance that he comes top 40. There's also a chance that he misses the cut by about 7 strokes. Luke List is in the Tony Finau camp of Team No Putt. The Shane Lowry camp of Team No Putt, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is a guy that can absolutely be a great ball striker, but just can kill you on the greens. And it's $5,600. What if he putts well? There's going to be a chance that he ends up playing pretty well. Andrew Putnam is like the opposite. He's generally a really good approach player and putter who has a decent track record at long golf courses. He's a guy that I'm willing to roll the dice at $5,600. And then Lee Hodges, $5,500, another guy who plays long and difficult golf courses as well. Jordan Smith at $5,500 is another guy that is on Team No Putt, except he is in the European version of Team No Putt. But he's been a pretty good ball striker, decent major championship track record, $5,500, not a bad price tag for Jordan Smith. And looking at my script here, I believe that was the last guy I was going to talk about. Yep, because I'll be honest, I'm probably not going below $5,500 this week, in all honesty, in terms of my DraftKings lineups. So there you have it, y'all. That is the DraftKings DFS preview for the 2024 PGA Championship. FanDuel, I know I didn't look at the board on FanDuel, but the pricing is very similar. The plays are very similar. I think FanDuel, you're a little bit more flexible this week. It's a little bit easier to fit 2 of the top guys into a lineup, as it usually is on FanDuel. But all the opinions that I had for guys will generally apply on FanDuel as well. So there you have it, guys. If you like what you saw here in this video, please hit the like button on YouTube. Please rate and review the audio, and please subscribe to the channel. We're closing in on 500. I very much appreciate it if you guys would help me do that and help get the word out to people that we're bringing good content here at Mike's Money Picks. We will be back tomorrow night with the PGA Championship betting preview, where we're going to talk best bets, one and done, office pools, all that stuff tomorrow night here, same spot. So make sure if you're subscribed, you'll be able to know when that drops. But other than that, that's all we got here for this episode, guys. So hopefully I was able to give you guys plenty of information to help you build a winning DFS lineup this week. If you watch this video and you win the Millie Maker, you let me know. And hopefully I would be ecstatic to know that I helped somebody win $1 million or win a big GPP on DraftKings. So, anyway, that's all we got, guys. Thank you guys for watching and listening to this point. Best of luck this week at the PGA. Come back tomorrow night, and I will see you guys then.